Reese, if you need to speak, you just push down the buttons up in green.
Thank you. Are we all ready?
And then we also talked about policies for new sports. Oh, okay. I had no light at all. Now it's red.
It's like the Matrix. Are you want to do? October 11th, 2022, Verona Board of Education Public Meeting. The meeting is being called to order at 7:14. If everybody will please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. The flag is in the back corner. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The reading of the meeting notice. This meeting is being conducted in compliance with the open meeting session that the Verona Board of Education passed a resolution at its annual reorganization meeting held on January 4th, 2022. The meeting set forth the schedule of its regular meetings, which resolution was within 7 days of passage. The schedule is sent to the Verona Cedar Grove Times, the Star Ledger, the Township of Verona, and the VEA. Postings of this meeting setting forth the time, location, and agenda were posted at the Verona Board of Education office and on the Verona Public Schools District website. The Verona Board of Education operates under a consent agenda format. Any board member has the right to have an item pulled to be voted upon or discussed separately. Copies of tonight's agenda and resolutions have been made available to the public and the press. Mr. Cruz, can you please call roll for attendance?
Sure. Mr. Walker,
Present.
Mr. Day,
Here.
Mrs. Drappi,
Here.
Mrs. Prisco. For the record, Mrs. Prisco is absent. Mrs. Freshy,
Here.
we have quorum. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. We have no presentations tonight, so we're going to go right into Ms. DiGiuseppe's superintendent report.
Good evening. One of the highlights that I'd like to first mention tonight is we have a new student representative to the Board of Education, Reese Shahado. Welcome, Reese. Who was elected in yesterday or the day before his election?
There we go. I think it was Friday.
Oh, it was
Yeah,
last Friday, right.
Yeah.
Okay. So, welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be working with everyone. Yeah.
So, Mrs. Sepsi, who is the student council advisor, and Reese and I will get together and we'll go over kind of what she'll do to compile her reports for the board meeting. I will say it's exciting for me to have a student. It's been my practice to have a student on the Board of Education in my previous district for the past 10 years. It's great. And I'm sure you'll bring us lots of great information. I actually had the pleasure of serving on this public library board with Reese. So she's also a member there. It's a very active student, and welcome. We're so happy to have you. So in district news, I know we had an athletics committee meeting, so that's going to be presented, but we have some really exciting results for our fall sports, including some county tournaments. And I know we are seeded first for our girls tennis, which is great. And lots of great news there. We also had, in addition to electing Reese to the Board of Ed, high school had their student council, general student council elections as well. And I'm sure Mr. Cogdill will put on the website all of the new, both the general student council and the officers for each class. He has not sent me a formal list yet, but I will certainly share that when he does. We've been meeting in administrative council, which is the central office administrators, to just kind of shore up some processes and procedures that, and I'm very happy to say, the staff that that are really gelling. Mr. Cruz and Mrs. Hyde, who is our interim for Director of Special Services in preparation for Mrs. Simmons coming on, Mrs. Ackerman. We've been really working on making sure that we have the standard operating procedures necessary. One of the biggest changes, what we will see is we've invited the State Department of Student Protection and Safety to come, the Office of Student Safety to come in and work with us on making sure that all of our procedures for lockdowns and evacuation drills and reunification and shelters in place, et cetera, are best practice. And the great thing about the Department of Education, which you will not hear me say very often, is that particular office is a very open, welcoming, and supportive office. So they're going to come up and they're going to meet with, they're going to actually watch us in action. We're going to go into 6 different schools, and they're going to call some drills and see how our teachers and our students and our staff respond. And they're going to sit down and go over, basically what they saw and give us recommendations, and then we'll build a plan from there. So we're looking at school building safety and security, bus evacuation drilling. We talked about it last board meeting. Our HIB procedures have changed. And we're also looking at having specific procedures for Division of Child Protection and Permanency calls. So all of these things we are working on making clear and concise directions so that each building is functioning the same way. We are also looking at getting the building principals involved in the goal setting process. So one of the things that I've asked them to do is to look at their student data, and there's a variety of sources. They can look at NJSLS, SLS, they can look at Start Strong. At the high school level, we have ACT, SAT, AP. There's lots of other sources of data for them to look at up here, and kind of send to me a draft of a goal, a student achievement goal that they like to focus on. And since administrators in the state of New Jersey have to do administrative goals under Achieve NJ, they can use them for both. And then we'll sit down with the curriculum department and really streamline those goals. I think it's important in having our building principals involved in that process. In the past, it's really been the curriculum department that's done it. There's 2 very clear sources of information about what moves students in a classroom. The first one is teacher in the classroom, right? There's a lot of evidence that shows that's the primary thing that's going to move children. The second is principal in the building. And so our principals, I'm going to encourage them to take a more active role. Not that they're inactive, by the way. I don't want to imply that. That's not my, it's not my, not meaning to say that. I just would like them to really dig deep and be involved in producing the goals that they're going to be responsible for implementing. So that's where we are as an administrative team. I just want to say it is now I'm entering my 4th month. Yeah, 12th year, 4th month. And I am just really excited to be here, and I'm working with people that are just really professional and intelligent, and it's really a really nice place to be. So thank you.
Just want to chime in real quick. You sort of teed it up for me with being here 4 months. I just want to say, it's tough jumping into a new district. I know you're a seasoned veteran and been through many battles and worked through a lot of challenges in various districts. But I want to say you've jumped right in here and made a choice to go out and meet everybody, that you could in the schools, the people out in the parents, students, really just being very involved quickly and try to dig, see what's going on with their district, see where maybe there's things that can be, improved upon, and maybe things that are doing great, and how we continue that trend, right? So, but I want to express my appreciation for you going above and beyond. I know it's your job, but you also are doing a lot of things that maybe a lot of other superintendents wouldn't be doing, jumping in for the first 4 months, and I just want to thank you for that. So.
You're welcome. Thank
I
you.
have a question. So Number one, I think it's great, the idea that the principal's working to set the school goals. I guess the first question is, at what point should a parent in any given school, be informed of what the school goals are going to be? And then question two, if we have 4 elementary schools, it's not a given that they're all going to have the same 4 goals. How are you going to prepare the community that FN's goals may be very different than Brookdale or Lanning or something like that?
That's a good question. So the great thing about our elementary principals is they work lockstep. They really work together regularly. And while their goals may be different, they should be similar, because we're working on mostly those tested areas, their language arts and math, reading literacy, early numeracy. What may look different is the group or the cohort that they're looking at improving. I will communicate the goals. I'll send them out in a blast through Parent Square, and they'll be posted on our website. I'll update the board. Part of these will also be under my student academic achievement goals. So I will communicate that. And you know what? That's a great question, Chris, because we do have 4 schools that are very different with different components to them. We know Lanning has a large component of students with disabilities. We know our students that are receiving English language services are at FNB, and they're different sizes as well. Brookdale has, with the exception of kindergarten, 1 teacher at each grade level. So there's challenges at each of our schools. So their goals will look different because the school makeup is different, the complexion of the school, the size of the school, the distribution of students across those schools are different. I would hope that the community would be happy to know that our principals are setting goals based on the communities in their schools. And it is going to be specific to that particular group. So if we have a group, I know across the state, first graders are struggling to read because they missed pre-K because of COVID. They had a relatively normal year. I mean, I guess comparative to the years before, but that early preschool development where they're not necessarily learning numeracy and literacy, early literacy skills impacted them in kindergarten, and we're seeing results of that in first grade. So I'm hopeful that most of our language arts goals are probably going to be focused around first grade literacy skills that we're going to see across the board. And I would hope that our principals are really digging into their data and looking at the cohort they need to address most and creating a goal to address that.
So I guess a follow-up question to that statement would be, I know you said they're going to use NJSLA and Start Strong, but they can't do that for the first graders. So I mean, in that respect, would we also be using the math growth data that we are currently gaining and already have for some of the older grades, 2nd, 3rd, 4th grade?
So I'm going to express my lack of experience here to say I'm not quite sure with regard to first grade with mathematics, or even first, second, K for 1, 2 for mathematics. I do know that we have a plethora of other sources of data among those grade levels in running records in terms of reading. We have teachers are doing running records. They're doing, and I'm going to forget the name of it because we haven't done it in a long time in my lifetime, in my most recent life, the DRA. So we have the DRA assessment as well as individual running records in terms of reading fluency. We also have, we have grades, and we have, common assessments. We use dimensions of math across the elementary, and writing prompts that we do common writing prompts among our elementary. So pre-grade 3, where we don't have actually even grade 3, we don't have backup data for. It would be in-house data. And I do know that the principals are working hard at increasing the amount of data they're collecting from teachers on a regular basis.
All right, thank you for the questions. Thank you for your detailed answers. Before we move on to committee reports, I do want to welcome Reese. I think having a student representative to the board has been a long time in coming. At the end of the day, although a board of education, we're not here to run the schools. We kind of make sure they run well. We do policy and oversight, but the student, you're an end product. Like, you are the reason why everybody's here doing what we do, and to have your voice at the table is amazing. So thank you for putting yourself out there to have the position, and welcome.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you so much. I really am so excited for this opportunity to work with you guys. And I think it's invaluable to have student input on the Board of Education now more than ever.
I also want to thank Reese for having been so informed prior to joining us on the board. You've attended so many of our meetings and have spoken so eloquently and professionally at all of our meetings. And I think that's why I was like, oh, we've met before. And I think it's just because I feel like I know you because you've spoken, you've attended so many of our meetings. So thank you for being so informed prior to joining us. And I think that's going to be a huge asset for you.
So with that, we're going to continue with our agenda. We're going to move on to committee reports. And at first we have education.
Yes, we met yesterday. And it wasn't a very long meeting. The AP presentation and scholar awards will occur November 22nd, and the letters will be mailed to the AP scholars. They're hoping to get them out by next Friday, October 14th. Curriculum council meeting will occur next Wednesday on the 19th. There are some curriculum changes that are in resolution number 9. Many of them, if not most of them, are standards-based changes. They're just updates to the standards. I know our excuse me, our middle school language teachers, world language teachers worked very hard this summer to revise the curriculum. And now we have a grade 7 and 8 French, grade 7 and 8 Spanish, French one, Spanish one that really mimic each other, and they're very lockstep. Social studies, AP European history was revised. They've included a plethora of new primary resources, and the US History 2 honors was revised, also standards-based, but also looking at resources. All of the revised curricula, as well as all of our curriculum, are linked on this PDF. It links directly to the scope and sequence and can always be found on the website. That's really it. We spoke a little bit about Mrs. Cesario supporting our kindergarten teachers as they implement the Dimensions math program for the first year. And she's our math coach that we are hiring through the ESSER 3 funds. And that funding is resolution number 5. Elementary report cards have been revised in reading, writing, mathematics, and science. They have been working on this for many, many, many months. And I think that is in the public folder as well to be looked at. Map growth testing will be next week in the elementary schools, and then the following week at HB. This week is Start Strong. And then the pre-ACT for grade 9, PSAT for grades 10 and 11 is tomorrow on the 12th. And some other things that we discussed were, we talked about policy 0164, just about making sure that the order of the meeting matches the order of the meeting on our agenda. I know we had changed the order of the meeting a little over a year ago in an effort to give the public as much information as possible prior to them making comments or questions about agenda items, in an effort to maybe answer some of those questions prior to them coming to the podium. And that was not reflected in that policy. So we're going to put that policy on the next agenda. We also talked about the use of addendums in our board meetings. And I think this was an interesting conversation because I think in the past, the board has sort of used addendums as a catch-all if something didn't make it on the agenda. And, a request was made, and not even a request, but a suggestion was made that addendums really be reserved for emergency use. If we have to, look at approvals or potential approvals for personnel that are needed right away, or leave of absences, things like that, that need to be approved as soon as possible, that for whatever reason didn't make it onto the agenda. And, that was just something that we sort of wanted to discuss as a board and see what everybody sort of thinks about that. And that's all. I mean, did I miss anything? AP visitor.
We also talked about how there's an unfortunate situation with the elementary schools where there's a teacher that's no longer, teaching that class. We didn't raise this person, so we can't talk about it
No.
specifically, but it's unfortunate that, based on whoever made those recommendations, we had people last year that wanted to be with us. And we said, no, you're not good enough. We don't want to bring you back, or it's just not working out. And, I know we have a new superintendent here, but we really need our principals to kind of have their pulse on what's going on. And where there's a huge national teacher shortage, we have to really make sure that we're not getting rid of people that actually want to be here, and bringing in people that, don't want to be here, or it turns out don't want to be here. So I think it's unfortunate that the parents and the kids are in this particular situation. I do trust absolutely that Diane and the principals are working really hard to try and find someone. But this is the time I think we really want to be cautious moving forward about letting go of people that want to be here when we need people more than anything.
It's unfortunate. And I will tell you, I've been hiring people since 2001. I've never had a situation like this. It's unprecedented. It's like getting struck by lightning twice. But while it's not an ideal situation, we are lucky that we have Mrs. Anderson and Mrs. Gisario, who are certified, qualified, rock star teachers that can step in and continue instruction. So instruction has not been lagging. They've been getting instruction this whole time. That's not to say that we are not actively searching. We've advertised the position on any number of school job websites. We are putting it in the Star Ledger this Sunday. It's unfortunate at this point. We do not have any applicants, and that's not unusual. We know there are school districts that are still looking for 60 and 70 teachers. So we will continue to utilize the people that we have on staff to make sure instruction continues to go forward for our children. And we do have our social worker that goes in regularly to check on the pulse of the social and emotional health of those kids.
Quick question. I know, Mrs. Trump, you had mentioned the addendums. Like the addendums, these are, as it says here, these are recommended by the superintendent. So it's really not a board catch-all. But I was just curious because, this one has 3 items, right? So it's not 2 items.
And one of them doesn't need to be on this
Yeah,
agenda.
but I'm just saying, what would happen if we have, say, a personnel leave of absence? And do we need to, could you do it with a straw poll via whatever, or you have to?
We shouldn't do
we
anything with
still
a
have to
straw
do a
poll,
we
but
still have to do something like this.
right. If we have a new hire and we don't have a board meeting, we can start date. I certainly would send all the required personnel materials to the board ahead of time, as we do, so that you would have that. But
Our conversation wasn't about the idea that we should never use this, right? The conversation was more about the idea that this is something that, we do want to give the public 48 hours notice to see anything that we're going to vote on. And if there's something exceptional that comes up, of course, we'll put it on. But not everything that we've seen on agendas, at least since I've been here, it's I guess January, or whatever, not everything we've seen put on agendas are things that had to be last minute. So it wasn't a criticism, it was more of a practice that I think that, Sarah and I agree that we should look to try and, do more often.
yeah, I agree with that. I think we can. I think we just need to make sure that those people that are submitting agenda items to us know that they have to get it to us by a specific date, or they have to wait. Yeah.
That's all right.
Yeah.
Have a cutoff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. No, for a second.
Yeah, definitely having that cutoff, and it drives behavior. Once people know that, they fall in
It's like
line.
payroll. If you don't have it by a certain date, that's
You're
that's
done.
the payroll.
Okay, so were there any other questions regarding education or comments? If not, we're going to move on to athletics, and that was myself and Mrs. Prisco. And I have to admit, I rely on Mrs. Prisco to do the athletics. because she's at almost every sporting event. We did talk about fall sports. Everything is off and running. Mrs. Palmarezzi gave us some updates. Our field hockey team has ranked 6th in the county, and this is only their 4th year of being in existence. So, shout out to them. That's awesome. Our volleyball team is ranked 2nd in the county, so that's like another huge boon for our athletes. We are going to be in need of a new head boys winter and spring track coach. That person is leaving for family reasons, and Mrs. Palmarezzi has begun recruiting to look for a replacement on that. We have October 19th is the date for Cheer for a Cure, and that's going to be with Cedar Grove and Caldwell, and that's going to take place outdoors, and that's at 6 p.m. And that's up here on our fields, correct? Also, we have October 14th. That's senior night for football, band, and cheer. And the theme around that is Minette's Angels, and they do fundraising for that. So that's like always a nice tradition. And then we also have October 24th, Verona is going to be at Cedar Grove, and it's going to be the Dig Pink. So that's another breast cancer awareness game. So that's all of that's going on. We also talked about the need of an outfield fence for girls softball, and apparently they are extraordinarily costly. So Mrs. Palmarezzi is looking into different options. She's getting pricing on that.
And that's different. And that's different than the foul ball
Than the
fence.
foul ball
Yes.
netting. We also spoke about Positive Coaching Alliance, which we've spoken about publicly before. It's a consulting firm. It's a third party who does exactly what their title is, Positive Coaching, and they work with our coaches, with our student athletes, and that in turn gets turnkeyed out to our whole community. And Mrs. Palmarezzi is in the process of securing a November date for our student athletes. And then we're going to move forward, continuing on getting future dates to hit all of our coaches for seasonal. Also, I want to note that Wednesday, October 12th is Walk to School Day. And a really nice tradition that has stemmed from that is our senior athletes go to the schools of which they came from. So they're little alumni going back to the elementary schools and having an opportunity to interact with those students and walk to school with that. So that's always like a nice day. We have Cheer for a Cure. Where am I going? Oh, then we were talking about often new sports want to get folded in. We'll have student interest and people come to the board and say, we have X amount of students and we want to fold in field hockey. Example is one recent example. We've done lacrosse over the years. So what we don't have is a set process. So the board asked Mrs. Palmarezzi to work with her team and administration to develop a process. So we have continuity in doing that. And whether it's going to be on a sliding scale, whether it goes by student interest and need, she's going to develop some criteria for that we're going to look at in athletic committee and be able to have a consistent process each and every time a new sport wants to get introduced. And then lastly, we're approving a field trip, and that is to the Tenement Museum, and that's coming up October 27th, and it's going to be the 11th and 12th grade medical bio class and US History 2. And for anybody who has never been to the Tenement Museum, it's super interesting. You select stories and the group goes in and hears a particular story of immigrants or health problems at the time, and you're actually in the tenement building and you kind of go through the building in a small group with the guide. And I'm just thrilled that our students are getting out doing field trips again and being able to have those experiences outside of the classroom firsthand. Did I miss anything on athletics?
Jump in.
Yeah, please.
The idea of, I think we'd all agree, the more opportunities we give to kids, for whether sports or clubs, the better it is for everybody. But I was really proud that Jorge and our interim superintendent worked to kind of phase out the field hockey and the swimming pay to play. And I would just really like to see this district's philosophy be to get as many kids doing things at no cost or at very little cost. And if that means more headaches and money moving for you, Jorge, then, thank God we got you to work on that.
I kind of want to piggyback on that. And I mean, and it's a little personal for me because, field hockey is very close to my heart. I'm a coach for field hockey for grades 5 and 6. And I'm incredibly proud of our high school students who were the first grade 3 and 4 to start in our town. And it's just exploded into this wonderful program. But they are the only high school sport that still does not play on our high school field. And I know I've asked this before, and the answer was that it will void our warranty. They're in fact they're the only town in their conference that doesn't get to play at their high school. And I think it's like a little bit of source of embarrassment for them. And I would ask that we sort of go back and see if there's a way around that, see if there's a way to add sports to the warranty, see if there's maybe a way to re-up the warranty and add sports to it, or to void it and start something new. I don't know what the answer is because I'm not the business administrator, but that would be a request, seeing as they're the only high school team that plays on a turf field that doesn't get to play on their own turf field.
That did come up, and it was not only voiding the warranty. I think Mrs. Pomerezzi had it priced out. If we added the lines, it's upward of $20,000 to just add the lines for that sport. So, I mean, it's not something that is out of the question. It's still on her radar, the athletic director's radar, and they are looking at ways to, like you said, maybe if there's a workaround or go back to the manufacturer again and see what can be done.
But if all things are equal, I'd much rather see that $20,000 used to make it so that they don't have to pay a dime and everybody can play. And, they have to go up the street then, because currently they're still
right.
paying something. So I agree with both of you. You bring up good points. I think at the high school football game this week, like Mountain Lakes was playing like their middle school or elementary. It looked like. So like I think it's, town specific or maybe county specific. A lot of schools do that, but just let's get kids doing cool things.
If Mrs. Pomerezzi wants some conversation about history, because I was involved when we voted on freshman soccer, adding them, lacrosse, swimming,
Yeah,
field
swimming,
hockey.
yep.
Well, and we tried to have sort of a process where you ramp it up and things like that. So I'm happy to provide some insight for her, some background about what
Yeah,
we've
I'll
done
go
so
back
far.
and send her an email and loop you in on that because I'm sure she would appreciate the historical knowledge on it. The other committee that met was Community Resources, and that was myself and Mrs. Prisco and Mrs. DiGiuseppe again. A lot of the focus on that was centered around our website. It's come up a lot of times. It points to communication with the public, communication for our students, communication with our teachers. We have 6 schools. Our website, admittedly, and we all know it, it needs a lot of help. It's very clunky. It's very outdated. Ms. DiGiuseppe has begun doing some work and getting more of the information consolidated. And again, we want to look at consistency between things. If you're a parent and you are looking at your students' teachers, for example, each page should have certain information that's the same. We want to leave some autonomy that the teachers can have their personality come through and put personalized stuff, but basic things like contact information, updated, email addresses, any of that, we need consistency. So that's definitely a work in progress, and it's very much on our radar. And the other things that we talked about in there was policies as well, of just you know, the process on reviewing policies and getting everything up to speed, because at the end of the day, it really is our main job.
And I did reach out to former Castro at Strauss Esme with some questions. He has not gotten back to me, but I'm waiting for him to return my call.
So I'm
And
sorry, you guys were just talking about policies
In
in general?
general.
Oh, okay. All right.
Just in general, nothing specific. No. So, are there any other questions regarding that?
Just are you done with your report?
I
'Cause
am.
I didn't know if there was the one other item was the candidates forum. I didn't know if you remember, that came up.
Oh,
We did.
That's-
We spoke about.
I totally forgot. I don't have
Getting,
it
and
jammed
it's actually on the agenda, and I apologize for getting the agenda into the folder so late. Mrs. Lebersky and I didn't misunderstood her. So, and I didn't put it in. I couldn't get it in. So I just said it to Eltion, Mr. Bosch, and he put it in for me. We did talk about my reaching out to the Conference of SCAs who's running the candidate night and going forward in the future, maybe having it earlier in the year because of mail-in ballots. I mean,
yeah.
many people have already voted. So to have a candidate night in, mid to late October might be too late for the current way we vote in the United States, which is a lot of mail-in ballots. So I will speak to them about that, about going forward with that.
I also think too, like organizations like the League of Women's Voters is a big part of this too. And I think,
Yeah,
we're-
so
we're
it was,
lucky that they
it was a
take
very
this
big
on.
public conversation after last election season in November of reaching out to them and requesting that it be moved earlier. So it is about 10 days earlier this year than it was last year. I think last year it was the very last week in November and election was like less than a week away. So they did make some headway, but like Mrs. Di Giuseppe did say, the earlier in the season, the better. So the public really has an opportunity to hear from and learn about the platforms and meet the candidates more before casting a vote. It is Thursday night. It's October 13th. It is going to be in our auditorium. And I believe it starts at 7 PM. I'm like
7
looking at a
o'clock.
candidate in
Yeah,
the audience. So 7 PM in the high school auditorium. I would encourage everybody to come. I believe it's going to be live streamed. I don't know if they put a link out to it yet.
I don't know that. I will, I'll go back and they asked me to send out a reminder with the sign up sheet.
Because
so.
it's always been live streamed. So I know they had a form out that for the public to submit questions. So that's a great question, is
But
will it be live
I think the
streamed?
point to what I'm trying to make is that like, this is a really awesome and kind service that the SCA and the League of Women's Voter does to us. And I think that it's really unfortunate that, some people who didn't like whatever part of, I thought the thing was easy last time, but we got to make sure that no matter what communication we have or suggestions we make, like the first thing we have to do is say, thank you for doing this thing
And
that you
they
don't
were
have to do.
thanked
Like that's the
profusely,
first
yeah.
thing.
They were thanked profusely every year. It is a great service to the public. I mean, the public is who is voting for it. So they absolutely are recognized for that work. I think that was it. Does anybody have anything else on that?
No, but before you move on, I realize, and I didn't say in my superintendent's report, so I'll try to not forget things next time. The food truck festival was phenomenal. So anyone that made it there, it was a great day, great turnout. And I almost forgot a huge event that's happening, next Saturday, which is the band festival of the bands. So
Oh, on the 15th.
on the
Yep.
15th, it starts, national anthems 4:55. First band performs at 5 o'clock. Verona High School Band, the unofficial winners, of course, no, I'm kidding, performs at 8, and the awards ceremony starts at 8:30. So fingers crossed for good weather. And tomorrow night is the CPAC meeting at the high school at 7 PM as well. CPAC, yeah. Yeah, sure.
I think we're done now. Are we good? Okay, so we're going to close up committee reports. And at this point, we're going to open up to public comments on agenda action items. So if there's anything in the resolution that's being voted upon, if anybody has any comments regarding that, you can come to the podium. And I see none. So we are going to officially close public comments and continue with our agenda. Are there any new or old business discussions that the board wanted to bring up?
I just want to thank the faculty and administrators for amazing open house nights, amazing back to school nights. It was so awesome to be back in the schools and seeing people face to face. I got sufficiently lost at HBW, even though it's my alma mater, so
It's not hard.
this is a lot. But I also really want to thank the custodial staff because the buildings look unbelievable. They look amazing, and I want to give them a big shout out for all their hard work.
Just want to, I think we talked about this too in the ed committee. I think we forgot to bring it up. I forgot to bring it up more specifically. So just to make sure we're all on the same page. So when we voted 4-1 no on that 7260 or 7240, the naming facility, my understanding is that now it passes so that the new policy is
Yeah, the one that was at the
first
first,
one.
the one that was at the first reading.
Okay, very
Right,
good.
and that is what I'm clarifying with from the cashier. That has been my practice as a superintendent. The policy as changed was voted yes unanimously for first reading. The changes that were made into second reading were voted against. So it reverts back to what was at the end of first
But
reading.
even if it was, the first reading wasn't voted unanimously though. Lisa voted no.
No, but it was quorum. It was a
Okay, the
quorum.
quorum,
Yeah,
right,
I'm sorry.
very-
Yeah,
okay, very
that's
good.
right. That's
very
right.
Yeah, as
It
long
was
as the motion
right. It was
passes,
a-
it'll
I'm sorry. It
revert
was
back
the
to
motion
that.
was carried. I should say not unanimous.
Okay, very good.
And we have no public comment on resolutions, so I need a motion to approve resolutions number 1 through 13.
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Drappi,
Second,
second by Mr. Day. And is there any discussion on 1 through 13? On number 8, not number 8. One for school, under finance, number 12, the YMCA pool for Montclair, is that the swim team? Okay. And
Mr. Walker might have clarified for me, but I just wanted to, or one of Mr. Cruz, the Title I, Part A for Resolution 6. That's like some kind of
Yes.
special funding.
So every year we are required to approve staff that's funded under reimbursable funding, federal funds. So resolution 5 and 6 is just that. So right now we have 3 staff members that are funded for ESSER 3. We have 1 staff member funded 100%. And then the benefit cost that you see there is actually the reimbursement to the state of New Jersey. And then in resolution 6, it's actually a 0.3 FTE. So $30,000 is actually being funded on each of those staff members as coaches. So the first one and number 5 is actually a math coach, and the other 2 are literacy coaches. And that's Title I. The 1 and 6 is Title I, correct?
Okay, thank you.
and if there's no more discussion, Mr. Cruz, can you please call roll for voting?
Sure. Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mr. Day,
Yes,
Mrs. Drappi,
Yes.
for the record, Mrs. Prisco is absent, Mrs. Freshy,
Yes.
we have quorum, motion passed.
Excellent, thank you very much. And those addendum resolutions that we were discussing, we do have 3, so I need a motion to approve addenda resolutions number 1 through 3.
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Drappi,
second.
Second.
I want to get
second.
I thought
by-
Reese was going to help me out.
Second by Mr. Waka. And is there any discussion on those?
Yes, I guess so. After our discussion about, use of addendums, I just see like the food service and general fund checklists on here. Was that just because we were like, oh my gosh, we forgot? Or, not to
So,
call you
yeah,
out, sorry.
So for food service, so one of the things, because we only have these 2 meetings, our accounts payable department sometimes is not able to get to all the invoices by that Friday deadline. And a lot of times when we have certain invoices that are kind of like outstanding on that Monday when coming back, they kind of like make it. And so having that, that's something that I guess I'm definitely open to discuss. It's just like, if we don't, we decide not to put it on as an addendum, it'll just have to wait until the next board meeting. And
I mean, will that impact us negatively financially if we don't put it on? Like, will we get a fine or a hit or something?
so
or
for
whatever you wanna
these,
call it?
I would say no. Like if it was like a debt service or some kind of like a lease payment, something like that, that has like a financial impact. As long as, you know, a lot of times we have net 60-day terms.
Right.
And especially with the food vendors, is usually fine.
All right, if there's no more discussion, Mr. Cruz, can you call roll for voting?
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mr. Day,
Yes.
Mrs. Trappy,
Yes.
Mrs. Prisco is absent for record. Mrs. Freshy,
Yes.
we have quorum, motion passed.
Excellent, thank you very much. And at this point, we're going to open up to public comments on any topic. So if any members in the audience wish to say something, please approach the podium. We need your name and address, and there's a 3-minute time limit per person. And I'm just going to put on a clock here. Give me a second.
Hi. Two things that I wanted to mention, you already mentioned already, so thank you. It was a senior night next Friday. That's for the marching band color guard and the football players and cheer. So it's a really sweet ceremony. All the seniors get escorted by their parents onto the field and they get announced, and it's really sweet. They do that before the game. And the other was that the next Saturday is the Festival of the Band. So I recommend everybody come out there and support it. It's the music department's largest, the band's largest fundraiser of the year. So that's a really good event. And Verona Marching Maroon and White won they were grand champions last Saturday at the West Orange Festival.
Nice.
That was really, really exciting. And then the other thing I wanted to ask was, and I can never remember the name of the consulting company, the DEI, is it Green River Grand?
And River.
Okay, thanks. I always think of like Green Mountain Coffee for some reason. So I know the findings were presented a little while ago, and I didn't know what the plan was to do with those findings. If we would eventually know what the plans were in place, and then will they come back to reassess what's been done? Or is it more like a self-assessment that happens on an ongoing basis? Oh, and I'm sorry, I'm Laurel Brawley, 72 Newman Avenue. I totally forgot. Thank you.
Yes, so with regard to the Grand River Solutions report, we will post that report on our website so that anyone would like to read through the whole report can do that. I'm in the process of working with the DEI consultants to, not consultants, I'm sorry, facilitators and coordinators to go through that report and pull out those areas that are prioritized as something we want to look at as a district. We'll present that to the Board of Education, and they can finalize those areas in which we're going to focus on. I don't know whether the board is interested in bringing Grand River Solutions back. I wasn't in that part of the discussion.
I think the contract was for them to do that first piece, the assessment that they did, give that report, and then that was it.
That was it.
So now we are taking the recommendations, like you said,
Yeah.
and then from there, then we'll go on. If there's further recommendations from the team and the administration, then we would reevaluate.
I think we're in a good position to self-evaluate going forward.
Hi there. Good night. Good evening, everyone. Palma Qualiata, 71 Newman Avenue, neighbor of 72. And for a period of time now, you know, we had seen at these Board of Ed meetings, several Verona residents, continually the same ones, speak out against masks, against vaccines, against anything having to do with the COVID protocols, which we know keep people healthy and alive. It is these same people that have attempted to shut down the search for the DEI consulting firm, And we know this over and over through many board meetings. They they just didn't want it. And let me back it up just a bit. To any residents not familiar with the acronym DEI, stands for Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, which is a method by which students learn to be welcoming to people of all faiths, of all backgrounds, learning disabilities, and physical disabilities. Thankfully, 3 board members, namely Ms. Freshy, Ms. Drappi, and Mr. Waka, voted to proceed in hiring this company, Grand River Solutions, which would take a thorough look at whether the Verona school system was equitable to all students. The findings by Grand River Solution were presented to the board this past August 30th, and I urge all Verona voters and students to watch this presentation and decide for themselves whether we want our community to be doing the right thing in this way. Also to keep in mind is the majority of large American companies have DEI policies in place. So our kids can either learn what it takes here in Verona or have a rude awakening when they enter the job force and realize their funny little jokes do not fly in a professional environment. And so I come here today with concern that 2 of the 5 candidates running for 2 open Board of Ed seats are backed by this group of parents who are very vocal in not wanting DEI methods in our schools. And indeed, a search of these candidates' websites show no mention whatsoever of supporting DEI initiatives. In addition to these websites, at the December 7th, 2021 board meeting, during the public comments, a Verona resident who is the campaign manager to these 2 candidates railed with fury against having DEI consultation. These are the candidates whose signs are popping up everywhere. It is these 2 candidates that, if elected to the board, will attempt to disrupt and then eliminate the progress that Verona schools are working towards. What is equally concerning is that a current board member is supporting one of these candidates, as evidenced by their letter to the editor published in Tap Into. That this board member voted yes for the DEI consult, and after the presentation expressed agreement on many of the aspects of Grand River Solutions. And that this board member would support a candidate that does not support what the board and the administration clearly feel is important for our students. It simply does not make sense. And so I ask those watching this meeting today to please do your homework. Do not rely on yard signs in choosing your candidate. You are much smarter than this. Thank you.
I would address Ms. Speaker. I think the first part of the comment about the same people being anti-mask are the same people that you may have been very, very anti-DEI. I think that's a little bit of a generalization. Well, I also was anti-mask, and as you noted, I also voted yes for the DEI. So I think there's a difference with there. I also probably am guilty of railing of fury at board meetings when the schools were closed and I wanted my son to go to school. So I think passion is strong. My other recommendation would be I'm pretty easy to reach. If you want after the meeting, I'll give you my email address. And if you want to discuss any of my positions or anything I've written, I'm happy to speak on that.
Well, that's fine. But I think as you have, put out your recommendations at the same time, I just, want to say to all, I'm really speaking to the Verona residents, right? You all here, but also the Verona residents, that they really need to do their research. I do, if you want to explain.
I'm
sorry.
Yeah, I'm gonna butt in with time. And I think Mr. Walker made a really generous offer. So I absolutely think that you should follow up and have a conversation. So thank you for your comments. Thank you, Mr. Walker, for offering up your contact information.
Thank you. So my name is Diane. Can I go?
Name and address.
Okay, Diana Ferreira, 49 Fells Road. I'm one of the board candidates that you're referring to. And I also would recommend anyone who is listening to rumors to contact me directly. I'm an educator. I have been doing work great literacy work for years, way before this was something that was even being discussed with my own students. You can see my work. You can go onto my website. The reason that I don't have these things on my website, and I don't want to use this as a platform, so I'm going to be very quick, but I feel as though I need to defend myself publicly right now, is because I will always do this work through literacy and through curriculum, because I believe that books are the way to reach students, not committees, not consultants, literacy. If we have great books, we have opportunities to give students perspectives that they may not get anywhere else, right? We can teach and have conversation and dialogue and great learning experiences through literature. So if you would like to speak to me, I will answer any questions. I will have open conversation. I'm always happy to do that to any community member. And again, if you look at my platforms, it is curriculum and literacy that I think always will push students forward. Always. That's where the conversation and dialogue happens. And to me, that's the important work that needs to be done. Thank you.
Very much. Is there anybody else who's approaching? Let me reset. Give me 1 second.
Joanna Breitenbach, 14 Woodland Avenue. So I no longer have kids in the district. Feeling a little sad about that right now, but I just wanted to take this opportunity to welcome Ms. Di Giuseppe to the district. And I'm kind of, like I said, I don't have kids in the district anymore, but I would like to continue a dialogue in things that I have, things that were of concern to me as my kids were leaving the school district, and things that I think can be better addressed moving forward. Just to continue a dialogue, and not just for me, but because of the fact that I don't have kids in the district anymore, I think it's something that could be beneficial to other families moving forward. So I just wanted to introduce myself, welcome you to the district,
Thank you.
and I look forward to working with you.
Okay, thank you.
Very much for your comments. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak? Seeing none, we are going to officially close public comment portion. I do want to say thank you to all 5 candidates, because making yourself vulnerable and putting yourself out there, for better or for worse, it takes courage. It's a crazy job. In my 9th year of it, and it's a love-hate relationship. It's a lot of work, but it's good work, and the rewards are amazing. We have one of our rewards sitting at our table with us. And so to all 5 of the candidates, I say good luck. Have a great candidates night for them. And, it's going to be exciting to have new faces on the board, no matter who, because I think we're all here for the right reasons and doing the right thing for our students. And with that, I am going to ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Drappi,
Second.
second by Mr. Day. Our next meeting is Thursday, October 27th. We changed it from Tuesday because the majority of the board will be at New Jersey School Board's workshop. So we're Thursday evening, October 27th, right here in the Learning Commons at 7 p.m. We have our confidential session at 6 and that at 7. And I need a verbal aye to adjourn the meeting. And it is, let me give 8:12.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everybody, for attending.